We've been hearing about the topic of national divorce. People from the left, people from the right, everyone's talking about it. What is a national divorce? Well, the idea is that this country is so politicized. There are people on the left who disagree so heavily from people on the right that it only makes sense for us to have a riff and for us to physically separate. Obviously, you can't break up the United States, but you can break it up through borders. And that way, one ideology, the people on the left, and another ideology, the people on the right, they have their own physical geographies of where they're going to reside and live and do business, transact, all that. Now, this is a problem on not for the reason why people think it's a problem. Now, I'll first state this. America was designed to be a gridlock system. What I mean by that is Congress was designed to make it difficult to pass laws. Now, if you have the majority, or if you have people from both sides who are corruptible, which we've now led into that situation, that's when Congress is no longer gridlocked because they're working for the establishment, and they're all part of the same camp. They're all part of the same boat. So whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, whether you're an independent, whether you're for the Green Party, it doesn't really matter, Forward Party. If you're part of the establishment, there are interests that tie you to the overall agenda that's moving forward, regardless of who's an elected official, whoever's in office, then it doesn't really change anything. Now, I will say the majority of Democrats, they're part of this establishment. You have a few percentage of Democrats who are Democratic. They're not necessarily part of the establishment, but they're ignorant because they don't understand the history of the Democrat Party. Then you have a decent amount of Republicans, potentially also the majority, but slightly less than Democrats, who are part of the establishment. The rest of the people in the Republican Party, let's consider them patriots. There's not too many of them. Now, typically speaking, everyone in Congress should be a patriot. Everyone should be for the United States of America. Everyone should be for the American value system of individual rights, entrepreneurship, limited government. These are basic things that have allowed America to be the most prosperous country compared to any other country to exist. Now, we have people with different ideologies. Let me get back to this. Congress is designed to be a gridlock system to prevent laws from passing because most laws that pass go against the Constitution. Every law that gets passed, most likely, if you analyze it from a constitutional point of view, it is infringing on someone's rights to some degree. It could be passing the Patriot Act, which the government used public sentiment to pass the Patriot Act, which made it legal or it's not really legal because when you say something is lawful or unlawful, you're using the Constitution as a principal basis to determine what is lawful and unlawful. You just have enough executive force to enforce something that you've written in the books, and that goes against the Fourth Amendment. Unlawful search and seizure, so going into someone else's effects. Now we have the digital world, so the government will go to companies like AT&T. Hey, we need to see someone's information. Maybe AT&T obliges, and they don't have to go through a warrant, or you create another court system and you say it's for terrorists, and so it's easier to get a warrant, but you can label anyone as a terrorist or you can label anything as national security, and thus you don't have to go through a stringent due process system to spy on your own demographic. And every country has done this since the dawn of time. Most countries are infringing on the rights of their own citizens versus infringing on the rights of foreign citizens. Now, of course, there are bad guys out there, so we do want to go after them, but that's a different discussion. Now, when we look at the national divorce, there is one group of people. Well, there's a group of people, and then there are their pawns. So we're talking about the people who are at the top, not necessarily the pawns. The pawns may be your average Joe and Jane who are following the news loosely or following cultural aspects of politics loosely. They don't necessarily understand what the status quo is. They don't understand how it came to be. They don't understand the players behind the game. So they're just the pawns in the sense of they're doing the bidding for the people who are actually moving the levers, moving the gears of society. And these folks, well, they've already gotten into a position of power, into a higher status position in the hierarchy, and they've used American opportunity to get into those positions. Now that they're in those positions, they want to help themselves, their families, and the people around them, and they want to secure those positions for as long as they can, as many generations as they can. That's inherent. Humans are self-interested, and so naturally when you get in a position, just like if you become really wealthy, you're trying to figure out how to preserve your wealth and how to give it to your kids and your grandkids, such and so forth. So if you look at these people, they've used the American value system to get into the position that they're in, but now they want to create a barrier between them and everyone below them. And now they're discriminating against the American value system, the same value system that got them into the same position. They were only able to attain that position in this country, because if they had tried it in any other country, they would not be in that higher echelon position. Because in most other countries, there is a barrier where if you're trying to get into the ruling elite, the upper echelon, the wealthy, there is a huge barrier through law and through culture, through other means, that prevents you from climbing up to the top of the ladder. In America, for the longest time, we've had a meritocratic system. Now, there's always politics involved, but as close as you can get to a meritocracy, with humans playing the game with you, we have the best country for that. It's slowly degraded. Now, some things have gotten better. Okay, we've had civil rights, equal opportunity, but a lot of things have gotten worse. And so it's a balancing act. If we could have the best of both worlds, we would. But we do have people who are in these positions of power. They want to secure themselves, and now they want to destroy the system underneath them. So it's like using a ladder to get to the top. Well, it's like climbing up to the top of a mountain using tools. And then instead of passing those tools along to the next person, the people at the bottom of the summit, they just throw the tools out into the air and no one can climb up to the top of the mountain. Now you're at the top of the mountain and no one can challenge your hierarchy, your position in the hierarchy. So these are the same people who are very hypocritical, because we can see what their actions are. Their actions may be buying millions of dollars of real estate, yet they say that they're communists and that people should distribute their money. Well, you're not redistributing your money, you're taking your wealth and you're investing in yourself. And then when you ask them on camera, or they're on TV, whatever kind of interview they're on, they will say, oh yeah, but I care about my family, so of course I'm going to do that because I'm self-interested. And the people at the bottom, what we call the pawns, these are people who are just following along, not too intensely, but enough to where they can get a glimpse. See, okay, so if we look at the media and these different institutions, there are different layers to peel back here. So the people at the top, they understand at some level they have to create a facade. How do you create a facade? You understand that people will go to the airports, they'll be in their break rooms at work, they're going to see what's on the news. Okay, that's the first layer, creating a surface level layer. Then you're going to have people who become more intrigued. They want to learn more. So they don't just go to the break room or go to the airport and see what's on CNN. They actually do their own due diligence by reading books, going on the internet, and they're looking at articles, they're trying to gain different perspectives. So you have to create a layer 2. And then you'll have people who want to go beyond that. And they'll say, well, hold on, everything that I'm researching could be incorrect. I can, of course, use my critical thinking, but I need the legitimate information that's out there, the information in certain documents that have been hidden from us. Or I need to understand what the different factions of government who have broken off or haven't broken off, what are they doing behind the scenes? Where are they siphoning money to? Where is this funding going? And those people will go to the layer 3. So there are different layers to this. And it gets deeper and deeper, like an onion. There's so many layers, but it gets deeper and deeper the more layers you go through. And people who are trying to secure their position, they understand that every time you go to the next layer, you are narrowing the population viewage. So the majority of the population, after they get through most people won't even go to the first layer. But let's say you have a handful of people that go to the first layer, then only 10% of those people will go to layer 2, and then only like 5% of people will go to layer 3. So they are, let's say, less careful the deeper in of layers that you go, because they understand the majority of the population is not going to go through all those layers. I would also say they're not as careful even with the surface level layers, like layer 1, layer 2, yet they know that they can put on a decent facade and people will follow along with it. They don't have to create some extravagant type of deception. But humans have been deceiving people for the longest time ever. We build societies, we have teamwork, we're cognitive thinkers, we strategize. We're really great in that aspect. But we also understand that other tribes, other civilizations, other nations out there want to come and take our resources, want to take our labor, want to take our women, like whatever it has been on a primal level historically, other people want that. And so we have to play a deceptive game, and then you'll have people within the game who will work for those nations, right? So you can have double agents, you can have spies. We all understand this at a surface level, but it goes extremely deep, and it can become so convoluted to where even the people who are part of the system, that is their status quo. So like I'm laying all this out, but you can have people who are at the top of the hierarchy, seemingly at the top of the hierarchy, how the average person would perceive that person at being at the top of the hierarchy. And they would say, oh, that person probably knows everything that's going on. Well, not necessarily. That person may be at that point, but really is a figurehead, and he or she doesn't really know what's happening behind the scenes. He or she doesn't even know or understand. It's like we've been taught for so long that carbohydrates, grains, processed grains are good for us. That should be, if we're using the food pyramid, that should be the biggest part of our diet. It turns out if you just understand our ancestral eating, that's actually 100% opposite of what is true. And most people aren't going to dig deep enough to even see that truth. But once you're part of that system, you don't really question it. It's just status quo. It's what has always been and what will always be. But of course, the status quo changes. There are people behind the scenes who change the status quo. Steve Jobs is a good example, not necessarily behind the scenes, but from a consumer level, changing the status quo of how we communicate with telephones. Now everyone uses an iPhone, and based off the iPhone, we now have app stores. And so this created a platform where businesses could build and become, like Facebook, build multi-$100 billion businesses. So there are different systems, different people in place who change the status quo. But a lot of times when people are in the status quo, they don't necessarily understand that they're part of the status quo. They're almost indoctrinated into the system themselves, even though they're in the position that they're in.